Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Pantzer, and I'm really happy to introduce you to today's guest, traveling entrepreneur Janelle Alex Ph.D. She helps women entrepreneurs create leverage as authors so they can streamline their time, have super successful business, and thriving relationships as moms and wives. Yes, you can have it all. Welcome.
Thank you, Tammy.
I'm really excited to talk to you. So you are a traveling entrepreneur. Tell me a little bit more about who you help and your background.
Wow. Well, I started my first company 26 some years ago now. I was only 19. So I've been an entrepreneur pretty much 99% of my adult life. I only worked for someone else about 15 months, I think, of my adult life. So I certainly know the ins and outs, rather, of running a company. I've had the brick and mortar businesses. I owned a company as well with my husband for a while, and we hit that recession like so many did, and lost everything: the rental properties, the house we lived in, the whole, we have the big horrible story, and we still said, hey, we're not going to give up. And what we ended up doing is we both ended up going and working online. And so it was a very different dynamic to work online than to work in a brick and mortar position. It's very different. So over the years, of course, I've also written a number of books. I've co-authored a number of books with my husband. And that's really, we've always used them to position ourselves to get speaking engagements or to get interviews or just to repurpose those for different workshops or seminars and all those different pieces, as well as the fact we've run 3 different podcasts and been quite successful. We're currently focusing on one, so I co-host Authors Talk About It with my husband. So we really have a passion for authors. And I have always had a passion for, I want to say women entrepreneurs, but always just for women and empowering our young women so they can do what they want and have the freedom to do what they want, whatever that may be. Not everybody is as crazy as we have become and decided to travel all over the place. But that is an important factor. And to be able to be a mom and be able to still run a business, that's one heck of a juggle. So I think that's so important to me. And that is why I have shifted gears here recently and really put my focus into helping those women entrepreneurs truly create leverage in their businesses as authors.
Okay, so you help women who want to become authors or who are authors with their online presence and marketing?
Yes, that's certainly absolutely a part of it. But, we can't only live in the online world. Right. So there's that other piece, and so it's very specific to that particular client. And what is she doing? Where does she live? What works for her? Does she want to travel or does she want to stay in her big city? Or maybe it's a small town. I grew up in a small redneck town. So, what is it that works for her and how can she make the offline marketing work to her benefit as well so that she can totally streamline her time so that she can have an amazing business, but have time to, for herself, let alone being a mom and a wife.
Right. So how do you help everyone? So what are some of maybe 2 or 3 problems, and these can be real or perceived problems that you solve for women authors?
Well, I think the one, and I know I've kind of alluded to that here, is but that idea that we just don't have time. We so often say that. We just don't have time. And I say it too. I catch myself occasionally even. So it's really about knowing how to prioritize. What is it in your whole life, which when we're women entrepreneurs, I say women entrepreneurs, but I would say entrepreneurs in general, we're typically pretty passionate about what we do. And so that business life becomes very ingrained into our personal lives. I don't personally think you can really separate the two, not completely, because it's not like working for someone else. So how can we prioritize what in my business do I need to get done? What is the most profitable actions I should be taking so that I'm not just sitting on Facebook chatting with everyone and not getting any work done?
Right.
So what are those things? But then how do we chunk those things down? What do I need to do this week? Because maybe there's a particular project that I'm working on. Maybe it is finishing the book, or maybe it is getting the interviews for that particular book. So how do you chunk those things down and then make sure you do them all? But yet, see, you're not overwhelmed now because you can go, okay, wait, here's 3 things that I know I've got to get done today on that. And if they're huge things, you chunk them down again smaller. So when it comes to that, it's kind of like project management, but we make it fun. So it's enjoyable, and we find these fun ways to do that. And then how can you still absolutely make certain that you do still have time for your family? Because that is so vital to be able to have that and to have the fun with them and to have that support so that you still can love what you do for your work, but yet still have this sense of freedom. Just like yesterday, we took off. My youngest son, which is the one that travels with us, and my husband and I, the 3 of us took off. We're currently in Colorado Springs, and we drove up to Estes Park. And I went up to Rocky Mountain National Park, and, we're having a great time. I'm sunburned, but been in Colorado too long. We get to see the elk and moose and all kinds of great, beautiful views, but we took that time off so that we have that freedom. We've created that to be able to have the time to go do the enjoyable things in life and not only just work, because I've lived that life too.
Yeah, work is not the life that I would say none of us want that one, because I've done that too.
Mm-hmm.
You also talk about that sometimes people, they postpone their entrepreneurial adventures because they don't think they're good enough or they're not ready yet. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one for us women. I really do. I have heard it so many times from women entrepreneurs, whether they're just starting out or honestly, I've heard it said, because I don't know Oprah personally, but I've heard it said about her that there's just those moments where she's like, I don't think I can do this. So it can be big name people. But, we often think that. We think, well, I don't know enough about whatever it is that your business is. But you know what? We all have to start somewhere. Every single one of us. Those of us that are moms, we didn't exactly necessarily know how to raise a child when we had one. There's not a wonderful handbook that comes with them. We just go home with the baby and we'll go, oh my God, what do I do now? So hopefully for many of us, we have a support system in place and that helps. But of course, not everyone has that. So, as I said a while ago, I was 19 when I started my first company. I look back and I think, wow, I must have been crazy. I was so naive and so brave and just did it. There were many, many things that I didn't know and that I wasn't good enough at yet. But I did what I knew and what I was really good at. The things that I needed to get better at, I continued to. Back then, it wasn't about having a coach, but of course, I was a dancer, so I taught dance. So I was studying from huge name choreographers and instructors from New York to LA. So I was really making sure that I became better and better at all the different pieces that I could then bring back and teach to my students. And so that's the thing that women have to understand. You start from where you are. As long as you're just a couple of steps ahead of the people that you're helping, that's all they need. Because if you're so far ahead of them, right, then they can kind of be like, I can't do what you do. It's not even possible. So you have to just be in that space. And oftentimes there's that other piece of going, well, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to start it. I need to, maybe like right now, I don't know when this will get aired exactly, of course, but it's summertime. So some moms might be like, well, I'll just wait until the kids go back to school to start or to launch that new piece or whatever. Well, why wait? I mean, you just have to figure out how. That's what's so important, is understanding the time, how to chunk those things down and to make it all work fluidly together. Because just waiting and waiting, I mean, we don't know what tomorrow holds. So putting it off, gosh, you could have been so many more steps ahead and even been better at what you have been learning along the way had you already started.
I think that's really, really important that you do look at, the fact that we don't know what tomorrow brings. So if you're going to do something, you do have to just start. Another thing is that it's almost like we're afraid to be successful because we don't quite know how do we be successful, be a mom, be a wife, and balance all of these different things. And I don't know even if balance is the right word. Do you have some suggestions on how to incorporate family life with success?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. I'm very, very passionate about that piece. I know here in the United States that we have come a long way in respecting women as being leaders and so forth. However, and I'm not going to go on the political thing here, I promise, but there are a lot of people that don't care for Hillary Clinton. Some of those people, the reason they seem to not like her is because she's outspoken, she's a strong, powerful woman, and people have issue with it. They don't know how to handle it. Now, of course, that's not everybody's reason. And again, I'm not going to go political, I promise. So I'll step off of that one before I do. But when we are strong women, often, and research has shown this, and I think it was the University of Wisconsin, I don't know. I've forgotten now, I know, because there's a video out on it. But there's research that's even shown that when a woman is in a leadership role and she takes control, often she's looked at as being bossy, whereas the guy is not looked at that way. He's just a good leader. So we end up getting kind of a guilt trip when we step into the strong, powerful roles. We're labeled as bossy or controlling, or, wow, you should be taking care of your kids. You're not a very good mom. Or you're not a very good wife. Those mentalities are still there, not obviously as much as they used to be, but those thoughts are still there within our culture and society. And of course, in many countries in the world, that's the case. And obviously many others, it's a bigger struggle than we have here. But so how do we do that? How can we bring our kids in? Well, as I mentioned a while ago, I had a dance studio. Now, my first child wasn't born until I'd already been in business 5-6 years. However, before I sold my studio and retired from that career, he had already come on board and begun as a very young little guy, but I brought him right in. He was he went into classes with me from the beginning. I mean, he was an infant. I was taking him to work with me most of the time, or often. But he started helping the little other kids, like, well, how do you do this step? And he would start to help them learn it because he was a dancer as well. And then later in the business my husband and I had together, both of our sons as teenagers, they worked for us. So what things could your children possibly do in your business? Back in the day, we might have had them stuffing envelopes. So you have to look at those things and figure out what is it can they do. For us now, as we travel with our Alex Family Adventures, that's, of course, a big part of our brand is the travel and the adventure piece. And our youngest son, which he's 9, but he's starting to jump into that, do videos with us and do different pieces. He was even, we did a Facebook Live in one of our Facebook groups the other day, the piece of work that my husband and I do together, again, focused on authors, but we were doing a little thing that we do every Wednesday for them and giving them some advice. And all of a sudden, Bogley pops his head in and it was okay. There was nothing wrong with that. And I said, hey, everybody meet Bogley because this is your first, here he is. He's part of it. And I think that's so important to just let them, in whatever capacity works for you, to be a part of what you do. That works for your spouse as well, if he or she is on board. But that other piece there is to make sure that you do still set a time aside for date night with your partner. That's very, very, very important. You have to decide between the two of you, is it once a week? Is that too often? Maybe you need it only once a month. So you have to figure that piece out so that you can have just that. And then, of course, family night or date night with the family, as well as some individual time with your kids. So you have to, again, figure out prioritizing and then figuring out what works for you personally, and then putting it on the calendar. I'm probably, I say I live by my Google Calendar, which might be exaggerating a bit, but I love my Google Calendar. And it's so important to have whatever you have on your calendar. Just like Tammy, just like your appointment with me today and my appointment with you, however you want to phrase that. We were on each other's calendars and we knew we were going to have this conversation. And had one of us had something come up, freak that we couldn't have been talking, we would have let the other one know. And I'm sure we would have rescheduled. So that's what you have to do when it's date night or time with your children. Don't blow it off. Actually reschedule, like right then, if you have to cancel it.
That's really good advice. And having a calendar, and I agree, Google Calendar is wonderful because you can see, do I have any openings? And it's very visual. It's very visual. So the people you work with, the authors, obviously there are probably two or more camps, but you have the person who wants to write a book. How do you help them? And then you have the people who have already got a book, but it's sitting there. They don't know how to market it. So that's really a double question.
True. Well, let's start with those that haven't written one. There's so many people that they have that story. There's this huge percentage of people out there that they have a story within them. They have that book inside of them, but they have no idea how to get it out. They have no idea how to organize it. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. What would I say? And there's some other pieces there that if it's a personal story, there comes in the fear of sharing your personal story, which is a different dynamic in a sense, obviously. But the idea of, well, how do you lay it out? So that is something that I absolutely work with women on is if we are bumping up against the fear of, but it's my story and I'm scared to tell anybody. So there's certain other things, other obstacles we might need to work through and some mindset to work on. But once you're to the point of ready, like, okay, but how do I lay it out? We work through that. There's really a kind of a format that I like to use. It's kind of the what, why, and how format that I like to use when you're focusing on getting your book out and your story out, so that you're being beneficial and helpful to others. Our stories are interesting and intriguing, but we also need to always make sure that we're sharing with others, well, how can my story ultimately help them? How could they take perhaps what I've done and apply it to their own lives? So that's definitely a piece to help a woman lay that out so that she can begin to work on that. Then from there, once the book is written, a lot of people seem to think, wow, the hardest part's writing the book. And the hundreds of authors that we've talked to and worked with, trust me, writing it for most people is not the hardest, thing to do. It's the marketing. They don't know how to promote it. They're unsure of how to go about that. When it comes to using a book to help leverage your business, you really don't want to be focused on, hey, I'm going to make tons of money just from the sales of my book. No, your book is about giving you some clout and, like I said, giving you the leverage. So it's easier to become interviewed. It's easier to get speaking engagements. It's easy. Then you can repurpose the content from your book in a ton of different ways. From, you name it, but from blogging different pieces from it, perhaps having your own podcast. And there's ways to monetize that so that we've gained a huge percentage of our clients from doing our podcast even. So there's a long list of ways to do that. And that's the piece then. So now we've got the book. Well, how do I use it to best benefit me? So that's where I help women figure that out in that next step.
That's really cool because I absolutely agree. Writing the book is writing the book, and you cannot expect to make a lot of money from a Kindle book or a self-published book, or even from a book that's been published by a mainstream publisher. A lot of people, they think that, oh, wow, they get big advances and that the publishing company does all the marketing. But often that's not the case at all. The author still has to go out and speak and do all of the promotions and presentations. So when you're working with people, what do you think the most popular misconceptions about the services that you provide are? As what do you call yourself?
What do I call myself?
Yeah, and when you help an author, do you, like what would an author call you? Are you their mentor, their coach, their writing? What would you? How would you describe yourself?
Well, when you pull it that far down, it's, I'm in that sense, I'm a women's business coach or an author's business coach.
Okay.
So, we run with Traveling Entrepreneur because it's so much more fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's sounds like a lot of fun to travel around and get to explore the world with your children and your husband. That sounds really cool.
Well, and I think that's another piece when it comes to your branding to help you stand out. So, of course, there are a lot of people that travel, but there's not that many of us. It's growing, especially those of us that have gone completely or we're on the cusp. We're like 38 days, I think, from being nomadic. So we don't have a home per se. We stay for a few months at a time in different locations. But I think that understanding to have the coach. I mean, we so often we have business coaches. There's tons of us out there, but what is it that makes us different from each other so that we step out of the cookie cutter piece? And that's a very big piece that that's why it's so important for me to get to know my clients well, so that I can help them. Obviously the private clients, but so that I can help them get out of the cookie cutter mentality and not be in the trap of going, oh, I'm just an author. Or, yep, I'm a business coach, or whatever the case may be, or I'm a health coach or relationship coach. It's like, wait a minute, what specifically do you do so that you stand out and make it fun? So people are like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I want to know more.
Right.
And so that's a very important piece. And I don't know if I answered your full question or not, Tammy.
Well, I think you did a good job. What do you think is the main reason that people stop themselves from becoming an author?
From becoming an author, the main reason, I think there's two. Well, I guess it really is going to boil back down to one if you want to do the big umbrella. I think it's fear. Again, I could go back to, if it's a personal story, there's the fear of, oh my gosh, people are going to know about me and my junk and I don't know if I want people to know all that personal stuff. The other fear of, it's overwhelming. They don't know where to start. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but as well. And writing is ridiculously easy for me. It always has been. Wherever that gift comes from, I don't know. I've always said, I don't think it's me. I think it comes through me. But still, when you sit down in front of the blank page, you go, huh? And you think for a minute before maybe it starts to flow. So I think there's the fear piece. And then the other is, even if it's a fictional story that you're writing, there's still the fear of being judged or rejected by others. Maybe your writing stinks and people will not like it. But when I say that, I always go back to the fact of, gee, what was the most recent one that has had huge success as well as huge negative responses? And that would be the 50 Shades of Grey series. Obviously, it's a fictional story, but some of us think it was horribly, poorly written. And I couldn't even make it through the whole book because of the grammar and blah, blah, blah. However, she's made, I forget how many, $100 million, something ridiculous. So you have to understand that some people can absolutely love it. Not everybody has to. You only need those ones that make sense to you. So fear, I think, is at the core of all of the stopping piece there.
So do you work with your authors on that element of fear and help them make that major breakthrough to overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, because, we have to have our mindset in place. If we don't have the mindset in place, none of it works. If I had this horrible mindset, if I was terribly fearful today, I wouldn't be able to even stand here behind the mic, where you can't see me and speak to you about things. I would be nervous. I would be tripping over myself. So you have to have this mindset so that you can be more confident in whatever capacity that you're going to be out there. Because if you're going to make the business work, if you're going to make your book work and get people to pick it up and read it, you have to find a way to be visible. You just do. especially with a nonfiction book. And if you're going to be feeding that into helping you feed your business and bring you clients, you've got to be able to be visible. So that for most people, public speaking is one of the biggest fears there is. So those are things that you have to work past. And how can you, step that foot a little bit outside of the comfort zone so the comfort zone grows? And then how can you step it out a little more? So once you expand the mindset, then you've got to have, the tool set and the skill set to be able to make these things grow. And so all of those pieces come into place when I'm working with clients.
That sounds really, really phenomenal, because I can visualize, the growth process as you've been speaking. You start out with, well, I have a story inside of me. How do I get it out? And then you help them to outline it and get it out. And then, of course, market it and turn it into something that can help them be a traveling entrepreneur if they choose to. So, Janelle, how can people find out more about you?
Well, you can follow my family's crazy journey. AlexFamilyAdventures.com. And of course, we're on Facebook as well as Instagram under Alex Family Adventures. So you can see everything that both my husband and I do in that sense. But what I also do is I love to offer a complimentary 30-minute personal marketing assessment for women entrepreneurs, so they can really take that time to say, wow, let's take a deep dive into it in just 30 minutes even, and let's see where you're at and how is it working for you and those types of things, and maybe where you can improve and where to focus on. And the easiest way, even though it's all technically under the same website, you can go right to my page about me to sign up, to click the link to my calendar there. So that's JanelleAlex.com.
Okay, JanelleAlex.com, and you'll get a complimentary 30-minute personal marketing assessment. That's a really great gift that you're giving our listeners today. I really appreciate that. So, Janelle, thank you so much for taking time out of your big adventure, the Alex Family Adventures. That is the lifestyle that I've always dreamed about, is being able to just pick up and go and see the world, and because we live in such a beautiful world that there's just so much to learn and people to meet and places to go. So thank you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.